context, the official conclave to elect the next pope over the Catholic Church is scheduled to take place starting on May 7th this year. And it just so happens that a movie came out late last year about this very subject, about a papal conclave. And I objected to it almost from the moment I learned of this film's existence. And it's not just because I object to Hollywood taking the subject matter of something about the Catholic Church and making a movie about it. It's just that you already know how it's going to happen. You already know that it's going to be used as a bludgeon against the Catholic Church and against religious people in general, but it's yet another example in the pattern of outright disrespect and disdain that Hollywood has for Christians. And I'm gonna have to preface this first off with a synopsis of Conclave. It follows the secretive and ancient process of electing a new pope after the unexpected death of a beloved pope. Cardinal Lawrence, played by Ralph Fiennes, oversees the covert process as the Catholic Church's most powerful leaders gather from around the world and are locked together in the Vatican halls. During this time, Lawrence uncovers a trail of deep secrets left in the dead pope's wake, which could shake the foundations of the church. And this film also depicts cardinals as self-serving, power-hungry politicians who spend their limited time together attempting to convince one another that they are the lesser of two evils. So there's blackmail and extortion and lies and lots of Vatican political intrigue, which I can easily admit is actually interesting subject for a film. But they took that and they twisted it. They used this as, an evil movie disguised as an interesting movie. Because what they don't list here in the synopsis is the jump scare ending where they end up electing a trans pope, okay? There's your big spoiler. You don't need to go see the movie. At the end of the movie, they elect a pope and, big surprise, he's trans. He's actually biologically a woman, and we just found out, and he just happens to be the only cardinal who's not evil. He's such a nice guy that we just all decided to vote for him. So, I want to explain why I ended up deciding to watch this. I have already said this before, but one of my favorite things to do on a flight is watch a movie, and I simply will not eat the free pretzels. I will drink a sparkling water, and I will watch a movie. And given the timing of the news of Pope Francis's death, I decided, I might as well watch this movie, not so that I can use this as a way to learn about how a papal conclave works, because I don't trust Hollywood to educate me on that, but more so because I want to know what secular people are going to learn about the Catholic Church. I think that with the news of Pope Francis's death, a lot of people are going to watch this movie who weren't originally interested in it because they see it as a way to educate themselves on the process that is about to take place at the Vatican. And I want to know what story they're being told and how deeply are they being deceived and what is the true agenda being accomplished by this movie Conclave. It's clearly not to educate anyone on how the church works. It's a message-driven film with obviously an agenda for spreading gender ideology. And I do have positive things to say about it, despite it all. Visually, I loved it. It was very beautiful to look at. Obviously, with the backdrop of the Vatican, you kind of can't go wrong. Love the costuming and everything. It's a beautiful movie. It looks great. And not to mention, the vast majority of the movie was genuinely interesting to watch. I was actually intrigued in the play between all the different characters and their mixed motivations and the power dynamics between all the different cardinals and uncovering the truth of what happened before this beloved Pope died. It was like almost like a mystery movie, not a murder mystery, but there was a lot of mystery to uncover. And I enjoyed that up until, I guess, the last 10 to 15 minutes. Because up until then, you have no clue that they're about to jump scare you with, like, the Pope is trans. Like, none of that was ever even foreshadowed before the last 10 minutes. So, like, you find out that all of these cardinals have ulterior motives, and they're all fighting each other in these underhanded ways for the power of being the Pope. But you also know that, of course, any man who wants to be the Pope is not spiritually prepared to be the Pope. And this one underdog shows up who no one knew of before. He was secretly elevated to being a cardinal without the rest of the church being aware, because he had a mission in Kabul, which meant that he was in danger and his parishioners were in danger if people were to know that there was an active Catholic community there. So he shows up to the Vatican, and they recognize him for his rightful title as a cardinal, and he gets to vote in this papal conclave. His name is Benitez. And Benitez is the one who ends up being trans. And ironically, it's like, oh, he just never did anything wrong. He's just perfect. He's the only cardinal who's not a rotten person. All the rest of them are evil for a variety of different reasons, but Benitez, he just has a heart of gold. And you find out why at the end. It's because, oh, he's trans, so he can do no wrong. And it's not as simple as that. They foreshadow it that the Pope had planned for him to have medical treatment in Geneva before the Pope died, but Benitez didn't end up getting this treatment. He decided against it. This was supposed to be a hysterectomy. Benitez has female parts. It wasn't fully explained, but we're left to conclude that Benitez is biologically female, was scheduled to get a hysterectomy, and did not end up getting it, and chose to remain biologically female in every meaningful sense of the word, and also became a priest and became the Pope in the process. And no one was going to object to that. Just for the sake of putting it out there, this would never, ever happen in the Catholic Church. This, I would like to believe, any priest who was found out to not be biologically male would be defrocked. And it certainly wouldn't be a priest that would get eventually elevated to being the vicar of Christ on earth, the Pope. But, you know, I guess the truth or, you know, like the realistic nature of whether this could possibly happen is not relevant to the movie plot. This is also, it's based on a novel, which is already publicly known. Like, the plot was already known before the movie came out, so that's why I also spoke out against it. But, you know, the rest of it, I have to say, was interesting. And then when I ended the movie on the plane, the woman sitting in the aisle across from me saw the end credits rolling on screen, and she was like, "Oh, you watched Conclave. What did you think of the ending?" And she had already watched it, of course, and she asked me my thoughts on the ending. And I said, like, not knowing whether this woman was woke, I was like, I hated it. And she was like, yeah, me too. Like, it was terrible. I was like, right? Like, it felt disrespectful and that this would never happen. But don't you think the rest of the movie was great? Like, it really had potential. And she was like, yeah, like, they just completely destroyed what could have been a great movie by ending it with 10 to 15 minutes of basically gender ideology nonsense that had no connection to the rest of the story. And it's funny how they take creative liberties when it comes to any other source material, except for a novel like Conclave, where they have to stick to the script instead of making the story better. They could have made the story better by just completely omitting the way that it ended. You know, I just want to say I was rooting for Cardinal Tedesco. He's the evil traditionalist. He's the cardinal who comes sauntering in talking about how We need to have an Italian pope who respects the traditional Latin mass, and, you know, he has to be against homosexuality, he has to be against abortion, he has to stand up against the Islamization of the West. These are the things that Tedesco was saying, and you're, as the audience, led to believe that he is some kind of evil, meanie jerk face for all of this. And I just was enamored with him. I was like pro Tedesco, like I want this guy to win. Obviously that was never going to happen, but you know, you're supposed to conclude Tedesco is an evil, meanie, jerk face bully, and we're supposed to not like him because he's too traditional and he's bad. And then there's also another cardinal who's guilty of some kind of sex scandal, so he got disqualified too. And then there's another like super progressive liberal cardinal named Bellini. He's played by Stanley Tucci, and I obviously sided against him because he's trying to corrupt the church and he's pro homosexuality. He's very socially liberal. And then you have another cardinal in the running, Cardinal Tremblay, who is caught trying to sabotage Cardinal Adeyemi, who has a sex scandal in his past, and he decides to bring it to light in front of everyone, but then everyone finds out about it. All of this happens, and then eventually they're in the middle of voting, and a giant explosion goes off outside of the Vatican, and the window crashes in. And they find out that it was an Islamic terrorist who planted a car bomb and detonated himself outside of the Vatican. And they find this out, and they're all freaking out because they're not supposed to know about the news going on in the outside world anyway during this process. But Tedesco goes on this huge rant about how we need to get this under control. There is a religious war on the front steps of Christian Europe because we have an increasing amount of Islamic terrorism and migration from Islamic countries. He is emphasizing the importance of standing up for Catholic identity in this country and throughout the world, but especially in the West. And I was like listening to his speech, just like cheering it on, like this was awesome. And you're supposed to, of course, be led to believe that this is evil, that he's saying this. And then they point to Benitez. He's looking and he says, "May I have a word?" And trans Cardinal Benitez says, "You know, I don't think you know the first thing about what it's like to be in a war zone, because I've done missions in Kabul, and Christians and Muslims are killed both, and you just are trying to make out that Muslims are monsters, and you're just a big meanie jerkface, and we should all just eat cupcakes and slide down a rainbow, and we should all just be happy and hold hands and kumbaya, because, you know, there's no real difference between us as Christians and the Muslims. We all worship the same God, and everything is fine. We can all just hold hands and be happy." So then all of the cardinals are like, "Wow, what a guy." They're all just like, this guy is a walking saint on earth, and we all have to vote for him. So he gets a supermajority. He wins. They find out that he's trans at literally the last second. And they're like, who cares? Like, let's just make him Pope anyways. It doesn't matter. He's such a nice guy. It doesn't even matter. And everyone's all happy, and that's that. Like, that's Conclave for you. You don't need to bother watching it yourself. I have done the work for you. And I am ultimately happy that I did watch it, because now I know what people are going to glean from it who are not Catholic. This is unfortunately what people will turn to understand what is happening at the Vatican currently. Although it's misleading, at least now I am equipped to understand why. And yeah, overall, 0 out of 10, do not recommend.
Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media, and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.